Hey everyone, Corey here with NewbComputerBuild.com. I'm here today to talk about and do an overview and review of the Kingston Fury Beast RGB memory kit. The kit I have here today, which you can see right here, is a kit of 64 gigabytes of DDR4 3600 CL18 Kingston Fury Beast, which I test in both 32 gigabytes and 64 gigabyte capacities at varying levels, but we'll get to that shortly. Is the Kingston Fury Beast RGB memory a new memory? No. It's simply a rebranded HyperX memory modules that Kingston has taken upon and made a new brand, the Fury lineup, recently, where they released the Fury lineup with the Fury Beast and then the Fury Renegade. The Fury Renegade being the more superior, faster timing sort of memory that you would get with a higher end build, and then the Beast being kind of the one before that for gamers and content creators. But what these are simply rebranded modules from the previous HyperX, and HyperX was recently acquired by HP, which includes all their gaming peripherals, but Kingston kept all the DRAM part of HyperX. So what are we going to do today? I'm going to do a quick overview of the memory modules that we have here today, give you a quick lowdown on whether they're worth getting, do some tests, do some gaming benchmarks, and then show you how they perform at different overclocks and things like that, tighten up the timings a little bit, and then do a little bit of a comparison of since this is for gamers, we're going to do a little bit of a comparison for gaming, and so we're going to do some gaming benchmarks. We're going to do some synthetic PC benchmarks as well. We're going to look at some real world situations, so some video rendering, whether 32 gigabytes is better than 64. Is it worth it to get 64 for you as a gamer or even a content creator, and go from there. The minimum amount of memory required these days is 16 gigabytes for most gamers. Most games that you'll probably find will use under that. But 32 gigabyte bytes might be recommended for higher level content creators and things like that if you do a lot of multitasking. And 64 gigabytes, we don't know, but we'll get to that shortly. In terms of cost, if you were going to get a 32 gigabyte, so two 16 gigabyte kits of DDR4 3600 CL18 from Kingston right now in the Kingston shop, it would cost you $203.99 USD for the RGB variant. And it's only $10 less. Or sorry, the RGB variant is only $10 more than the black variant, which is kind of a good middle ground for those that are looking for customization for their gaming PC build. So you're not purchasing RGB based on the amount of costs, I would say. If there's that $10 difference, as it now gives you the choice just to get your kind of plain memory modules with the black heat spreader or the RGB on the top to add that little bit of flair. Now, Kingston sells these kits in several different speeds and capacities. Today, what we're taking a look at is the 64 gigabyte kit at CL18 timings. It comes stock with Intel XMP profiles, so there's two profiles that come stock with it. So this is DDR4 3600 at CL18, as well the second profile that it comes with is DDR4 3000 at CL60. It also comes Ryzen ready, which means that there's profiles for Ryzen to be able to use as well, AXMP in my case. What we're using today is a B450 motherboard to do some of these tests, which is I have a Ryzen 3000 chip in here, so typically it's running in dual channel, so it doesn't matter if we run two modules or four modules. I'll do that comparison in a second, but it's running in dual channel, so it would be interesting to see if there was a higher end system in quad channel, but I digress. But you may consider the Renegade in that case. We're gonna run some tests to see how well this memory kit overclocks. Is there some playroom? I already have a gist of how they'll perform based on previous tests with memory, and given that the Ryzen 3000 series runs best with an infinity fabric of a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning at 1800 megahertz, you should be able to run a 3600 megahertz kit, and that should be the sweet spot in terms of memory speeds. But we'll see with this kit of memory how high we can go and what kind of works, and we'll go from there. So the test setup that I'm using today is a Ryzen 7 3700X CPU. This is on the MSI Tomahawk Max B450 motherboard, and I'm using a Be Quiet Pure Loop CPU cooler and RX 5700 GPU. In terms of what the Kingston Fury kit comes with, it comes in this little case here, and all it comes with is a sticker, informational pamphlet, and nothing too special. The memory modules are packaged 2 per package, and they're all kind of wrapped together with a Kingston Fury sticker. Installation is fairly easy. It's pretty much plug and play ready. I was able to plug the memory modules in, and right away upon booting up, the RGB just lights right up in kind of this rainbow effect of the RGB lighting without doing any configuration whatsoever. I booted it up, loaded CPU-Z, and then right away we can see it was the memory speeds were at 2666 megahertz, which is great to see. So if you forgot to enable your XMP profiles and things like that, it would still be running probably okay. So the next thing I did was just boot up into the BIOS and then start testing. I was able to select the first profile in mine, which is AXMP DDR4 3600 at CL18, which was perfect. However, given my motherboard, I wasn't able to do the two XMP profiles as it just reads them as the same thing. So I wasn't able to load the other one, which would be on Intel systems, DDR4 3000. However, I was able to overclock and change those speeds quite easily. In terms of customizing the RGB lighting, it uses most of the standard motherboard softwares in terms of being able to edit the RGB lights. So in my case, MSI Mystic light, I was able to boot into it and easily select the different profiles in terms of customizing, such as the kind of a breathe effect and things like that, which was super simple. Fury is coming out with their own, Kingston and Fury are coming out with their own software called Fury Control. At the time of doing this video, however, they have a landing page available. However, it is not available for download as it is currently in beta. I reached out to Kingston and they just notified me that it would be ready in, I think, approximately a few weeks. So I'm curious to see how that works. So now what speeds did I test it at? So I was able to get the memory modules up to DDR4 4000 without any issues at CL18. In fact, it performed quite well at those values. And any higher than that, I wasn't able to get my PC to boot anymore, and it was very unstable. So I tested it out using memtest, and I was able to get a stable DDR4 4000 at 32 gigabytes. The next speed that I did was DDR4 3800 at CL18. Then I was able to get it down to DDR4 3600 at CL16, which is tighter timings of the standard that the memory is tested at, which is what it comes with, which is DDR4 3600 at CL18. So I was able to get those tighter timings. Then I took those tighter timings at 3600, and then we also tested at 64 gigabytes using DDR4 3600 at CL16, which worked pretty good as well. And then to wrap it all together, I brought in my Crucial Elite kit, which is only a 16 gigabyte kit, by the way, at DDR4 3600 at CL18. So now for the first test using Cinebench R23, the latest revision of Cinebench. Looking at our speeds here at DDR4 4000, CL18 was the winner at 11,939 points, which was insane. So the fastest we were able to overclock the memory was actually the fastest speed in this case. Coming in second was the 32 gigabyte version of the Fury Beast at 3600 megahertz speed at CL18, which was a close second. So that is the standard that the memory comes in, which is good to see. So in this case, you can see it would be worth overclocking. However, you'd be fine just plugging the memory and enabling XMP. Moving on, the next test we have is the 3D Mark Time Spy, which is the combined score, the combined CPU and GPU score. In this case, the winning memory was the 32 gigabyte Fury Beast kit at 3600 megahertz speeds at the tighter timings of CL16. The close second was the 32 gigabyte Fury at DDR4 3600 at CL18, so not the tighter timings, and then closely the 64 gigabyte kit at the same speeds at 3600 CL16. Now we bring in the 8 to 64 speeds read and write test. So how fast can we read and write based on the different overclocks of the memory? What we have here is the winning memory is any of the 32 gigabyte Fury Beast at DDR4 3600 CL16 or CL18, or 16 gigabytes with the Crucial Elite CL18. So essentially it came down to any memory clocked at 3600 megahertz. Next we have our gaming benchmarks, and we were measuring average FPS. What we did was 3 games here. The first one we have is the Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1080p and 1440p. Then we have Grand Theft Auto 5 at 1080p Ultra and 1440p Ultra. And then Ghost Recon Wildlands at 1080p Ultra and Ghost Recon Wildlands at 1440p Ultra. Starting with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, this was an interesting one, as at 1440p, we can see that the winning kit was technically the 32 gigabyte kit of 4000 megahertz CL18, but not by too much. So you can see that we got 60 FPS, followed by the second place, which was the 3600 megahertz kit at CL16 at 58 FPS. And then we had Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1080p with the highest settings. This one was a bit of a, I included this one, but it's a bit of an overshoot. I didn't have any VSync on, I didn't have any FPS limiters, but I was capping out at 100 on everything except for the 64 gigabyte kit and the Crucial Elite kit, which I got 99 on both those. So I would say it doesn't matter in this case which kit we had. It performed the same. So now for the Grand Theft Auto 5 tests. Grand Theft Auto 5 at 1440p, it doesn't really matter which one you get. FPS only kind of varied by a max of 2.25 FPS, but if you were going to get technical, the real winners were the 32 gigabyte and 64 gigabyte kits at 3600 megahertz, CL18 and 16. And then at 1080p, it was kind of a similar story. 2.73 FPS varied between, that was the highest variance between any of them. And then the number one winner, if we're going to get very technical, was actually the 16 gigabyte Crucial Elite at 3600 CL18, but they're all fairly close anyhow. Moving on to Ghost Recon Wildlands, 1440p. The winning one was actually this. There's margins are even slimmer here at 1.167 FPS variance between any of the tests. So I just said all of them won essentially. So it doesn't really matter in this case as well. And then moving on to 1080p, what we have is the winning memory again is all of them, as the variance was 3.07 FPS, so a little more of a variance here. If we want to choose a winner, it would be the 61.68 FPS using the 4000 megahertz kit, and then actually followed by the 3600 CL18 Crucial Elite, but they're all pretty much the same FPS, so it doesn't really matter in this case. Given that the gaming benchmarks didn't really matter, we can see that the kit performs as it should. But now the real question, are you purchasing a large kit of memory like this in order to game, or are you purchasing a large kit of memory that performs faster in order to game and do a bunch of other things? So moving on to the next test. I actually did a quick little video render test using 4K video, only 30 FPS mind you, for 10 minutes, and I used stock footage that went in a loop, and I tested 64 gigabytes versus 32 gigabytes at our fastest speeds here, not our best performing speeds at DDR4 3600 at CL16. What I found was there wasn't a difference. It actually capped out at 15 minutes 30 seconds for the 32 gigabyte kit, so which actually won with roughly 34 seconds over the 64 gigabyte kit, which was 16 minutes and 4 seconds. So upping the memory in this case actually didn't make a difference, but it makes sense. I think the memory capped out at only 20% usage anyhow, which makes sense as it wasn't going over 32 gigabytes anyway, so adding more memory wouldn't actually help. But I would be curious of even higher resolution rendering and things like that. But the case for the Fury Beast isn't necessarily for high-end video creators, it is for gamers and content creators. We are running simultaneously, we're running games and videos and creating content all at once, streaming, etc. So the next test I have is the real-world multitasking tests using everything I have. So in this case, I had my Steam running, my Blizzard running, I had Warzone running, I had OBS running, and recording my screen. I had Spotify running, playing music. I had only a couple Chrome tabs open, so I had my website open, Newb Computer Build, and then YouTube open. I had HitFilm Express rendering the 4K video real time, the same video that I was using in the previous test, all at once. And what it came down to was I was using a total 29.1 gigabytes consistently at that case, so just on the end of that 32, almost at the brink of that 32 gigabytes that I could hit. And so I guess in that case, I could argue 32 gigabytes would make sense, but if you really wanted to be safe, 64 being the next best bet would be worth it as well. But that's only if I'm going full tilt without breaking a sweat. So overall, the Kingston Fury Beast kit impressed me immensely. There's a little bit of playroom, and even though I was using a B450 motherboard, it satisfied me as a gaming PC enthusiast. The RGB lighting is a nice touch, and it's good to know that you can purchase the RGB lighting alternative for only a few dollars more than you could the plain black heat spreader variant of the Fury Beast. In terms of customization and installation, I mean, it's as simple as any other memory module, but in terms of the lighting, etc., and enabling XMP profiles, super simple. It's basically plug and play. Overall, if I was going to recommend a kit, I would say you're probably fine if you're just gaming at 16 gigabytes still, and you'd be fine with, and which the Fury Beast does come in. If you were going to up it to the 32 gigabytes, I would say that's for if you just really don't want to worry about your memory ever as a gamer. Maybe, and that would be if you're gaming and multitasking all at once. If you really wanted to do high-end video work and really push your PC to the limits, I mean, you could go 64 and not worry about it. And that, I mean, like, that's if you're punching out content like this and gaming and streaming all at once. However, I doubt many people are actually doing that, and you might actually hit a bottleneck with your CPU before you actually need more memory anyhow. So thanks for tuning in. Click that subscribe button if you want to see more reviews or monthly gaming PC builds. Otherwise, visit the site at newbcomputerbuild.com. Leave a comment. Do you game with 16 gigabytes, 32, or 64? Let me know in the comments below.